I'm Jenu,
And my name is Matt.
and we're doing this video for the Undergraduate Research Symposium. Yalanda and Torien, who were supposed to be here, are not available due to personal circumstances.
Okay, so this project has spanned a few diseases, but we've focused primarily on TB, and now we're on the coronavirus, kind of a sidestep. But let's go back a little bit, Matt. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your experience last summer, working in a lab with a group.
Yeah, with a group overall, it was a mix of 10 people, a lot of different personalities in the workplace. On top of that, it was a lot of different testing for different compounds, and I'll let Jenu speak over those different compounds. But on top of it, we had to make sure that everything ran smoothly. You had to interact with and delegate different duties, and apart from those delegations, you presented what you found, which ours was overall an implant and its dissipation of those compounds we put in that fatty acid over time, and we put all that information into a graphical format. And that was to prepare for our later Congressman visiting.
Thank you.
Okay, so as a group, there's a lot of people, as Matt said. However, we were all able to focus on either the primary version of our experiment, which was for tuberculosis, or we were able to expound and put other people on different side projects for cancer, HIV, malaria, and Alzheimer's.
Okay, so this biodegradable implant was designed specifically for developing countries. Why don't you tell us the reasons? Give us a few reasons why, and how it might differ from an implant, a drug implant that's used in Western medicine.
So Western medicine tends to be a little bit more expensive. However, with this implant, we have made it a lot more economical and a lot more widely available. We're using a plant-based fatty acid, so it's also culturally sensitive. We are also making sure that our medication or drug delivery system, if you will, is able to last for at least, approximately a month, so that way those in developing nations don't have to go to a doctor all the time, every single day, because currently there is a program installed called DOTS, Direct Observational Treatment, and so they have to watch the patient. Doctors or nurses have to watch the patient take their medication, so that way they know they're taking it, because otherwise the patients may not get their prescriptions filled, or they might sell their prescriptions or something like that, because it's just not economical for them.
Okay. So Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about working in a group with different people, with different projects. You're doing a lot of repetitive data acquisition that spanned over weeks or months.
Yeah, so working in a group like that, there's a lot of different dynamics that take place. And on top of that, with the different compounds that we utilize for cancer, Alzheimer's, HIV, all of those different types of testing, you had to have different types of people assigned to those, because that way you could collect data over a broad range of compounds. Like I said, since the group was 10 people, we could do that in a couple of weeks and 2 months, into a month basically. So that way we could see how all of them behaved over time. And when we input them into, say, an Excel format, which would later be, of course, edited to later be a PDF format, we had to know how to transfer all that data without losing any of the data, which was really important.
Okay. So Jenu, why don't you talk about, we focused on India, right? It's the second biggest country on the planet in terms of population. And why don't you talk a little bit about tuberculosis in India, both the number of people, and then the politics there now with tuberculosis.
Okay, so currently India has approximately 500 million citizens infected and affected by tuberculosis. That's a very large number, and it's a large number because there's 2 billion people currently that are infected with it. And
2 billion.
Yeah, developing nations.
Yeah, worldwide.
Yeah, worldwide.
Yeah.
And so the politics behind everything is that Prime Minister Modi has decided that he's actually said by 2025 he would like to eradicate this pandemic. and that's been going on for centuries at this point. And that helps our group because it spearheads everything that we're doing. Because now people are like looking at us as like an actual solution for the problem. And it affects not only the political standpoint by building ties and relationships, but it also helps heal a country and heal several countries afterwards.
Okay. So Matt, why don't you talk a little bit about some of the difficulties now that patients, and it could be India, it could be South Africa, it could be the Philippines, that they have with getting their TB drugs.
Right, and to touch on a little bit more of what Jenu was speaking about earlier, if you have to walk a block, if you have to walk 20 miles, which that could be the patient in general, then the chances of you taking a medication and taking it appropriately, for example, for TB, you have to take 5 to 7 large pills a day, and that's really not feasible for any one person if they have to keep doing it, and if they can be seen by a healthcare professional to make sure that everything's going smoothly. Because if they get off their medication, then they'll have to start another round of treatment, and they'll actually slide back. And if they slide back and you lose that kind of monitoring, then essentially you could lose the patient.
Okay. So tuberculosis is, a big disease in human history. The rough statistic is 1 out of 7 people that have died from TB. It used to impact the United States quite a bit. But recently as part of this, you had a congressman visit, and he's the only pharmacist in Congress, so it's kind of an influential type thing. Why don't you tell about your experience with him, giving a talk to him in one of our labs at BSU?
Right, so I'll let Jenu fill you in on a little bit more of just overall from her perspective. And then for mine, really it was exciting for him to actually come down and visit. And on top of that, it was even better for him to critique and give us back, just professional advice at the end of our talk. Speaking on that, he listened throughout the whole time. Us 10 of the group told him all about our different compounds, different processes, and different ways of how we're looking at them. And in all those perspectives, he found a question for each one of us, which was pretty cool. I mean, to get a guy who comes down from Congress, and on top of that, he's the only pharmacist-driven Congress up there, so we can get real feedback in real time.
Jenu?
Like Matt said, it was a wonderful experience. As a group, preparing for this experience was something that we all heavily thought about because we wanted it to be executed perfectly, because this was our chance, in a sense, to have someone that has the network system that we need to actually take us on and help us. And basically just get the word out that we have a possible solution for such a large issue, and such large issues actually, not just one. As a team, we handled it well, and everybody had their nerves, but when it came to the day that we actually executed everything, we did it well.
Okay. So part of this process was writing a patent. So we do journal articles and we do patents to protect ideas. It's a necessity in today's world to have intellectual property. When you write a paper for a class, right, you research other people's data and you summarize it basically. So this was unique in that it was your data, the group's idea. So talk a little bit about the difference between writing a long patent and writing a paper for a class. Maybe each of you can give a comment.
Yeah, so just like the presentation to the congressman, a lot of what patent writing is practicing how to write in a different format, just like we practice how to present in a different format, because that wasn't your everyday class presentation. This isn't your everyday class paper. You got to go behind and look at other patents to see how they write in their own language, and how different patent agencies, how they accept patents to begin with. And if you don't have any of those things, that could lead to your idea not being real life intellectual property.
So with this patent, it's a lot different than writing a paper, because a lot of you think that writing a paper, you can do that overnight for a class. But this patent is different and all patents are different, but this patent is specifically different because we have the ability to collect from a slew of different data that we have had tested at NCI and CDC and Texas A&M, as well as the University of Georgia and their systems and their facilities. So that has really boosted our credibility in this whole patent writing process. And the other thing about it is that this is a patent we've been working on for close to a year at this point, and we keep building it, as well as editing it, and having as many people as we do, we're able to see mistakes that others don't see, or we're able to propose a different way of like writing it or something like that. So writing this patent, it's more intensive, definitely, but it's also more worth it, because at this point this is to protect all of the work that we have put in so far, and so it's a lot different from a paper.
Okay. So now, as part of this, we kind of made a pivot recently, and we're not stopped with the TB, but we've definitely put it on hold because of the coronavirus. Right? And so what we're doing is adapting some of our kind of counterintuitive logic towards treating TB and cancer to the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys had a chance to do some experiments and then work on a journal article. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So, do you want to go?
So yeah, overall, and I'll let Jenu speak on just the process itself of the experiment, but it is a vaporization experiment, and we look over how just the different compounds that we have in question. One in particular is Biodegradable, but there are others. And there's a lot of different compounds alongside it that are antiviral. And on top of that, we see how they react and how they vaporize over time until they form a cloud. And then how that cloud is different, how consistent it is it thick, is it a little bit thin? And then on top of that, just how does the journal in question, once you have all of that data, accept the data? And how can we write it up to actually make it to where they understand what we're saying, and overall it sounds like the journal's intended target is.
Okay. So the thing in common with TB and this virus is the lungs.
Yes, so the virus so far that everybody knows is that it targets the respiratory system, which is why we use the tuberculosis and as well as like some of the cancer, different kinds of cancers to actually like pinpoint our own drug targeting. So what we're using, like Matthew said, is a vaporization process, and we've had to create a pseudo-respiratory system of some kind in order to actually test the vapors. And the other point is that we're using not just one type of drug in order to target, we're using multiple different drugs in different components and stuff like that in order to flush out which ones work and which ones don't work. The paper writing essence of this is that we realize that we have to get it out pretty quickly, because this is a rapidly growing virus, and so writing that was a lot of just trimming down things and making things were just like to the point and straightforward, so that way we were able to tell people what we're doing, but at the same time we're able to give them adequate information about it, as well as like tables and graphs and stuff.
Okay, so it's kind of a little different from ours from what other people do is, for example, right now worldwide, hydroxychloroquine, which is a malaria drug, is being tested. And so what our argument is that we have hydroxychloroquine, plus we have things that attack the infected cell, attack the genetic information in the virus, attack the proteins in the virus, and so it's kind of like charging the fort from all sides, not just the front gate. So maybe just from your experience, I mean, you guys have kind of worked in healthcare, you had medicinal chem, you've had a bunch of biology classes, so why don't you talk about that a little bit, maybe in a few sentences.
Yeah, so for all the biology classes and courses that I've taken, along with the courses taken in chemistry that coincide, such as medicinal chemistry, it gave me a great foundation before even all this started. So that way in the paper writing process, I can eloquently and fluidly talk about what I want to talk about in the paper and make edits that follow the overall train of thought alongside the current paper writing team that we're all?
So my background is that I am a medical assistant. I'm also a biology student with a minor in chem, and so the classes and just overall hands-on experience that I've had has enabled me to fully understand, like Matthew said, what we have to do in the lab as well as like when we're writing this paper. And I'm able to take from my experiences from dealing with like certain types of other viruses and stuff like that, then I'm able to put that in the prior knowledge into the paper that we're writing currently.
Okay, so if you had to give, a sentence or two as a closing statement, what would you guys say about the TB to coronavirus shift that we've made?
It's completely life-changing as far as what we woke up and how we could implement and work as a team in the lab as opposed to now. Now it's more video and online, which is okay.
So the shift that we've had to make, it's been slightly drastic, and that's only because we were working with something that a lot of the team has like a very not personal ties with. And so for us it was like, okay, we can work on this, we're going to save a bunch of people, and that's what we just kept saying over and over again. And now this has been not put on hold, but basically just simply put to the side for a moment, so that way we can focus on something that is everywhere and not just in developing nations, and it's affecting a large amount of people in a short amount of time. And so that switch was drastic but necessary, and I feel like we're going to make the big difference that's needed.
So let me ask this, when you get involved in a research project that has a potential, anything can fall apart tomorrow in research, right? That's part of why it's research is new. And you think of the impact you have, how does that impact your motivation level and your thinking as opposed to, say, rote memory of a PowerPoint slide or something like that?
Yeah, so for this current COVID-19 crisis, the data, if we mess it up, like you were saying, or if it comes back to where it's not the data we expect, we'd have to switch gears pretty quickly. And on top of that, we can have the maneuverability and flexibility to do that. So it's more or less a way to test ourselves further on just how flexible we can be, and then how we can communicate information across online platforms, and then from there kind of win the day, because it's a day-by-day thing against COVID-19.
So do you feel like you get more motivated because something's at stake that doesn't just involve a grade?
This is a very high stake, high risk, high reward kind of thing. And so everything you do is like, I don't want to say it, but it's like, it's basically a huge gamble. And with everything that we have, we're just trying to make sure that our cards are the best cards at this table. Because otherwise this virus has better cards than us, and I don't want to lose out to it. And I've been watching the news and going home, and my parents are both in the healthcare profession, and so they're essential workers, so they still have to deal with people like face to face. And yes, we're taking precautions and everything, but there's always those times where you've taken all the precautions in the world and you still lose out. And so right now this is affecting everybody that I know, that I see, that I have to work with, and I don't want to lose this gamble. So high risk, but I want the high reward at this point.
Okay. Well then, thank you very much, guys. We will post this to the glorious YouTube and send the link, and back to work. All right, don't forget to use your hand sanitizers, and Matthew, stay at least 12 feet away from me, all right? So,
You gotta be careful, I'm watching you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.